Coming up today, Prime Minister Lee Wan-Koo has offered to step down over allegations he took a kickback from a recently deceased businessman. President Park Geun-hye is expected to accept his resignation. The leaders of Korea and Peru agreed to boost their bilateral cooperation beyond trade into the areas of healthcare, aviation technology and media. Plus, in a step sure to infuriate Korea and other countries in the region, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he won't show remorse for Japan's wartime history during his World War II anniversary statement in August. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, April 21st here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, Prime Minister Lee Wan-Koo has offered to step down amid growing calls from both the ruling and opposition parties for his resignation over a snowballing bribery scandal. The Prime Minister's office said Lee, who is suspected of accepting bribes from Song Wan-jong, a business tycoon who committed suicide earlier this month, conveyed his intent to step down to President Park Geun-hye late Monday night. A ruling party official told Korea's Yonhap news agency that Lee reached the decision after deep consideration despite the unfavorable circumstances, with the president on the other side of the world. Officials are leaning towards the view that President Park will accept Lee's resignation when she returns home from her four-nation trip to South America next Monday. Meanwhile, Tuesday's cabinet meeting will be presided over by Deputy Prime Minister Choi Kyung-hwan in place of Lee. He is accused of accepting roughly $27,000 in cash from the late businessman in 2013. When Lee was running for a seat in the National Assembly. Lee has flatly denied the allegation. And President Park Geun-hye has expressed deep regret over Prime Minister Lee Wan-koo's offer to step down. President Park, who's currently in Peru, said she felt the Prime Minister's anguish behind his resignation. The President added she'll decide on Lee's fate upon returning to Korea next Monday. Calling on the Cabinet and the Presidential Office to ensure there's no administrative vacuum, she urged the prosecution to get to the bottom of the bribery scandal as part of political reform. She also asked the National Assembly to set aside political wrangling and to cooperate to pass bills designed to improve the people's livelihoods. Staying with the bribery scandal, the Parliamentary, Legislative and Judiciary Committee is calling on the government to launch an independent probe into that scandal. On Monday, the committee lobbed questions at Justice Minister Hwang Kyo-an, who vowed to get to the bottom of the matter. Lawmakers from the ruling party focused on the fact that Song Wan-jong, the late businessman who was allegedly dishing out illicit cash, was pardoned twice during the Liberal Roh Moo-hyun administration, implying there could be politicians in the main opposition camp who took bribes. Opposition party lawmakers said the investigation should first focus on the 8 politicians listed on the note found in Song's pocket. Meanwhile, prosecutors have summoned accountants from Gyeongnam Enterprises, the late businessman's company, to track its lobby fund. President Park Geun-hye, who's touring 4 countries in South America, is currently in Peru, as we mentioned. Meeting her Peruvian counterpart on Monday, the Korean leader highlighted the significance of the two sides expanding their partnership to include healthcare, energy and culture. Our Choi Yi-sun, who's travelling with the president, filed this report from Lima.
Before coming to Peru, President Park Geun-hye expressed hopes to expand bilateral cooperation beyond trade and investment. Meeting Peruvian President Ollanta Humala on Monday, she placed significance on the two sides boosting cooperation in areas like aviation technology based on deep trust. A total of 20 new deals were signed. A Korean hospital sealed a deal with a Peruvian hospital to help develop a telemedicine model to offer medical services to many Peruvians who have no access to a medical facility. This will give Korean medical equipment and communication device manufacturers a chance to launch their business in the region. Under its development strategy, Peru plans to inject $100 billion into building infrastructure until 2021. President Park said Seoul hopes to actively support Lima's development efforts by expanding economic cooperation. A number of deals will take Korea a step closer to winning projects to develop Lima's water management and electricity distribution systems, projects that could be worth as much as $4 billion. Peru is number 1 in South America in terms of Korean drama broadcasts, and there's an estimated 420,000 members in over 100 Korean wave clubs. Korea's global broadcaster Arirang TV and Peru's most watched America TV signed a deal to share content and to co-produce with an aim to promote Korean culture beyond K-pop throughout the continent. In a display of highest respect for each other, President Park conferred Korea's Grand Order of Mugunghwa to President Humala, who in turn gave Park Peru's top Grand Collar, usually awarded to the country's independence patriots. President Park will depart for Chile, the third leg of her South America tour, on Tuesday. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News, Lima.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has hinted that he won't show any remorse for Japan's wartime history during his scheduled statement in August to mark the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. Japanese media reported on Monday that Abe, who appeared on a TV program, says he sees no need for the upcoming statement to repeat previous statements of apology that the country has already issued. Standing alongside the growing calls for Abe to issue a sincere apology for Japan's wartime atrocities, the New York Times said the success of the Prime Minister's visit to the US this month depends on whether and how honestly he faces up to the country's wartime past, including its forced sexual enslavement of tens of thousands of women from Korea and China. In an editorial, the newspaper also said it was the fault of Abe that history tensions have not been settled yet. Now, with the wage row at the Kaesong industrial complex far from being settled, Monday was the last day for South Korean businessmen to pay their North Korean workers. But the South Korean companies may have won a little more leeway in their time frame. Our Hwang Sang-hee tells us more.
The good news for South Korean business owners is that the deadline for paying the North Korean workers has been extended to the end of this week. The wages were originally due on April 20th, but Pyongyang took into consideration the number of non-working days leading up to that date.
The companies requested it because the 15th and 16th were holidays. North Korea took our position into consideration.
But Seoul's Unification Ministry said nothing has been decided, adding that none of the 124 companies have paid the March wages. In February, the North unilaterally decided to raise the wages by more than 5% for its 54,000 workers at the Kaesong industrial complex. Despite 2 rounds of unsuccessful talks, the ministry reiterated that any decision must be reached through government-level dialogue.
We maintain the position that any revisions to the system, such as to labor regulations, must be resolved through inter-Korean talks through a mechanism like the Joint Management Committee.
Many South Korean companies are growing uneasy as the North has threatened to impose a late fee of 15% per month if they don't issue the wage payments on time. Experts say Monday's developments show Pyongyang's willingness to resolve the matter peacefully.
There could be 1 or 2 more rounds of inter-Korean talks at the Kaesong industrial complex. Once the joint military drills between South Korea and the U.S. end, I think the 2 sides will focus on resolving all issues through dialogue.
But if the situation deteriorates, experts say North Korea could increase the pressure by pulling out its workers from the complex and putting the blame on South Korea. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea's Defense Ministry has unveiled its blueprint for the next 5 years. More funds have been allocated to building 2 key air defense components aimed at deterring North Korean missile threats. Now Hyung-young has more.
$214 billion. That's about how much South Korea is planning to inject into its defense budget from 2016 to 2020 to beef up its military. This is according to South Korea's Defense Ministry, which unveiled its 5-year defense plan on Monday. $143 billion will be used for administrative expenses, such as troop salary increases and strengthening the military as a whole, for example, by bolstering its cyber warfare capabilities. The rest will go toward enhancing the nation's defense capabilities.
We allocated the money based on the key components for deterring North Korea's provocations, kill chain and Korea air missile defense, and on strengthening the military's capabilities in war.
Kill chain uses multi-purpose satellites, unmanned aircraft, and missiles to find and destroy targets, while KAMD utilizes Patriot interceptors and surface-to-air missiles. Roughly $8 billion will go toward building the two systems. That's more than $500 million more than what was allocated in the previous 5-year plan put forward last year. The budget increase comes as North Korea is believed to have made significant progress on miniaturizing a nuclear weapon and as its ballistic missiles continue to pose a threat. With the two systems, South Korea aims to gain the capability to find and destroy North Korea's mobile missiles launchers in 30 minutes. However, many experts point out that South Korea will continue to be under threat until the mid-2020s, as that's when the two systems are expected to be ready for deployment. They say until then, Seoul will need to bridge the gap in its missile defense capability. 나현경, Arirang News.
Foreign ministers from across Europe have been holding talks aimed at tackling the migrant crisis after a week in which more than 1,000 people drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. The European Commission presented member governments with a 10-point package on Monday for immediate action to ease the migrant crisis. The plan is aimed at doubling the financing and number of ships available to help overcrowded ferries. This issue is now a top priority for the EU, with European leaders set to hold an emergency summit on Thursday. As diplomats met in Luxembourg, the first bodies were brought ashore of some 900 people feared killed in last weekend's deadliest ever migrant ship disaster. Russia's financial regulator has denied speculation that it plans to slap banking restrictions on 41 mostly Western countries, including some that sanctioned Russia for its role in the Ukraine crisis. The denial came after a report emerged on Monday which said Moscow would begin exerting special control over banking operations of citizens and companies in countries that impose sanctions against Russia. Those countries supposedly included the US, Canada, the EU and Australia, as well as other nations that didn't even impose sanctions on Russia, like Iran, Syria and even North Korea. Now, air pollution in Korea has been and continues to be a very serious issue here in the nation. A recent study shows a significant number of people have died because of related diseases. However, the bigger problem is the prediction about how many more could die if the air isn't cleaned up. Connie Kim reports.
The fine dust that's been blurring the Seoul skyline is becoming increasingly hazardous and deadly to residents in the region. A study published in the Korean Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine on Monday says that more than 15,000 adults in Seoul and the surrounding Gyeonggi-do province died earlier than their life expectancy in 2010 because of diseases linked to air pollution, with fine dust being the main culprit. Now, that's nearly 16% of the total number of adults who died during the same period. Fine dust is made up of particles that are less than 10 micrometers in diameter, or about 1/7 the width of a human hair. Im Jong-han, one of the co-authors of the study, said the most common diseases linked to air pollution are lung cancer, cardiovascular disease, and chronic respiratory disease. What's even more concerning is the study's prediction that more than 25,000 people could die from air pollution-linked diseases in 2024 if no steps are taken to curb it.
Up to 40 to 50% of the dust drifting into Korea comes from overseas, so the Korean government's efforts to address the problem will not be enough. Bilateral cooperation with China, the main contributor to Korea's air pollution problem, will be needed to solve the issue.
Korea has already taken steps to address the issue. Last year, during a trilateral environmental ministers meeting between Korea, China, and Japan, the ministers talked about ways to work together to tackle various environmental issues, with improving air quality topping the list. But what's really important, experts say, is for China to develop clean energy sources to use in place of coal. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The Gyeongju World Culture Expo has launched its organizing committee ahead of this year's Gyeongju Silk Road Cultural Festival. The governor of Gyeongsangbuk-do Province, Kim Kwan-yong, will chair the 58-member committee. Representatives from more than 40 countries are expected to come to the event, which promotes the southeastern city of Gyeongju, the capital of the Shilla dynasty, which was one of the three kingdoms of Korea thousands of years ago. The Silk Road Cultural Festival kicks off on August 21st and will run for around 2 months. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a great day, and thanks as always for tuning in. We hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.